June 1967. The scorched deserts of the Middle East stood at a total, haunting standstill. The world watched with bated breath as the borders of the Sinai and the Golan Heights became the stage for a confrontation centuries in the making. The scars of 1948 and 1956 had never truly healed. Now, they were about to bleed again. The charismatic Egyptian president, Gamal Abdel Nasser, had emerged as the voice of a defiant Arab coalition. Driven by the dream of pan-Arab unity, Nasser sought to challenge the very existence of the Israeli state. But was this mere political brinkmanship, or the prelude to an inevitable catastrophe? The gears of war began to turn on May 13th. A clandestine Soviet intelligence report reached Cairo, claiming that Israel was massing 11 to 13 brigades on the Syrian border for an imminent strike. Though the report was later proven false, the damage was done. Nasser seized the moment. In a series of rapid escalations, Egypt deployed its forces into the Sinai, expelled the United Nations Emergency Force, and most critically, closed the street. On the morning of June 5th, while Egyptian pilots were still at their breakfast tables, the skies erupted. Israel had launched nearly its entire air force, 200 jets, on a mission of absolute audacity. To evade radar, Israeli pilots flew at a treacherous altitude of just 30 feet above the Mediterranean and the desert floor. It was a high-stakes gamble where a single error meant certain death. At exactly 7:45 a.m., the first bombs fell. 14 Egyptian airfields were struck simultaneously. The IDF focused first on destroying the runways, trapping the Egyptian MiG fighters on the ground, before obliterating them. In just 3 hours, 338 Egyptian aircraft were reduced to smoldering wreckage. Jordan and Syria attempted to retaliate, but by noon, their air forces met the same fate. But the desert sands of the Sinai remained the ultimate test. Egypt had dug in with 7 divisions and nearly 1,000 tanks. They expected a frontal assault along traditional routes, but Israeli generals Tal Sharon and Tal had other plans. Major General Tal's armored division bypassed Gaza and struck toward Arish. While Egyptian intelligence initially dismissed this as a diversion, the brutal reality set in as Israeli tanks, supported by relentless airstrikes, tore through the defensive lines at Khan Yunis. The turning point came at the fortress of Abu Agela. Here, Tal Sharon executed a tactical masterpiece. He deployed paratroopers behind enemy lines to silence the Egyptian artillery, while launching a synchronized night assault from 3 directions. The resulting chaos shattered the Egyptian command. In a moment of sheer panic, Field Marshal Abdel Hakim Amer ordered a total retreat from the Sinai. It wasn't a retreat, it was a disaster. As Egyptian columns bottlenecked through the narrow desert passes, they became sitting ducks for the Israeli Air Force. By June 8th, the Sinai belonged to Israel. While the Sinai burned, a second front opened in the ancient streets of Jerusalem. Israel had initially hoped to keep Jordan out of the conflict, but misinformation from Cairo convinced King Hussein that the Arab coalition was winning. On the morning of June 5th, Jordanian artillery began shelling West Jerusalem. This was not a war of open fields, but of house-to-house, room-to-room combat. The struggle for Ammunition Hill became one of the bloodiest encounters in modern military history. On June 7th, Israeli paratroopers breached the Lion's Gate. For the first time in centuries, the Western Wall was under Jewish control. One final bastion remained, the Golan Heights. Climbing the Golan was considered a suicide mission. The terrain was steep, fortified, and treacherous. On June 9th, without formal government approval, Moshe Dayan ordered the assault. The 8th Armored Brigade led the charge into a wall of Syrian fire. Despite heavy casualties and the punishing terrain, the combination of Israeli grit and napalm airstrikes forced a Syrian withdrawal. By June 11th, the guns finally fell silent.
In just 132 hours, the map of the Middle East had been redrawn. Israel had seized the Gaza Strip, the Sinai, the West Bank, and the Golan Heights. Over 1 million Arabs now lived under Israeli administration. The victory was a result of superior intelligence, decisive air power, and unified command. But the Six-Day War was not the end. It was merely the prologue to the next great clash, the Yom Kippur War, just 6 years away. This has been BattleLine history. If you found this tactical breakdown insightful, subscribe and hit the bell for more from our Modern Warfare series. We will see you on the next front.